What's up, Bass Campers? This week I brought on Dante Rose, a producer based out of LA, to do the first ever track breakdown on the show. If you're listening to just the audio, make sure you check out the video of our conversation on the Basecamp Podcast YouTube channel or by heading to basecamppodcast.com and hitting the show notes for episode 24. Let's jump right into it. All right, Dante Rose, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to be on, for sure.
So for those who don't know, Dante Rose, he just released a new remix, and I'm absolutely in love with it. So I wanted to bring him on the show and have the first track breakdown be his remix. And we're in his Logic project right now. And before we jump in, maybe we can just get a little detail on like your background, how you got into music, how Dante Rose started, anything you want to share about your project.
Yeah, sure. So I was like 13 or 14. I'm 34 now, so I don't know what your listeners' age range is, but I'm 35 actually, just turned 35. So
Easy to forget.
Yeah. So the way I got into it was a PlayStation 1 game that was like really basic, like a few samples that you put together. I was obsessed with it. It's like all I did day in, day out. But I kind of saw it as a computer game. It wasn't like I was serious about making music or anything. It was just fun to put beats together. And I think like I was recreating songs at the time. Like I was into like at that time like hard house, hardcore, stuff like that. And I was mostly like recreating the melodies, and I suppose that's how I learned. That was a long time ago, and then I kind of did it on and off. And then recently I thought I want to get serious about it, because it's my main passion, that, and artwork as well. I like doing that.
Gotcha.
So the Dante Rose thing, I've been through so many names. I just feel like I'm bad at coming up with names. So I just put these two names together after some trial and error. And I just kind of liked how that sounded together, and it kind of suited the vibe I'm going for, which is like kind of dramatic, orchestral, and then kind of heavy drops, whether that's bass heavy or like future bass, synthy stuff. Like, yeah.
And so you said you started on like a PlayStation, like DAW type of thing. How did you progress into Logic? Was Logic the next thing you tried? Or did
No, it was a long time after that. So I was using that for years, like from being, say, 13, 14 to maybe 18 and 19. And then after that, I got Reason. Oh, no, it couldn't have been that long. So maybe a few years it was. But I got Reason. That was the next thing. It was a Reason demo. Sorry. So it was a Reason demo. And where I used to work, they had Macs. And there was GarageBand on there. So I also used a bit of GarageBand on my breaks and stuff like that. That's how I started. Like, so back then, this was 15 years ago. That's how I figured out sidechaining, but with volume automation. I didn't know what it was. I just thought it'd be cool if the bass dipped under the kick. So I volume automation. That's what I used to do.
Did you manually draw the dips in, or did you?
Yeah.
It's funny. I feel like every electronic producer has that aha moment where they're like, "Oh, sidechaining. That's like the thing I need to be doing," right? So that's fun.
Exactly.
It's cool, man. So you said you used to produce like hard house and stuff like that early on. So what was your sort of trajectory and like what you listened to that brought you to future bass and the stuff that you make now?
So when I was really young, that was when I used to do hard house, when I was just messing around. Then between that and the last few years, it was like purely house music, like 125 BPM. I was doing that for a long time, and I got quite good at that. But I don't know, I just can't stick to one thing for that long. So I just started getting interested from house music. I got interested in dubstep, like early dubstep, like Rusko and Casper. I don't know if you know who that is, and them sort of guys. So I got really into that. Then I made a bit of drum and bass. None of this, by the way, released. I barely, finished music. I just loved doing it for the sake of doing it. But I learned a lot from doing it. So.
Gotcha. So today we got this project open. Maybe we could play a quick little snippet from like maybe your favorite section to show the
Yeah, for sure.
on here.
So my favorite section is the second drop around here. Play it from around here.
Trust my intuitions always. I'm not superstitious. I got lucky. Stole your heart and it was mine for the taking. It was mine for a million days. It was mine for a million days. In a million.
That's it.
So sick, man. Love this track. So maybe we can dive into a little bit of what you did. First off, like, how did you get started? You found a remix contest, right, with that vocal. Did you just put the vocal in and just start drawing around it? Like, what kind of process did you go through for this one?
Yeah, exactly. I had no idea what I was going to do, so I put the vocal in. I listened to it's Sabai. I think that's how you pronounce it. Million Days. So I just dropped it in. I thought the first thing I want to do is pitch it down. I wanted it. The main thing I wanted is to be completely different to the original, which is like, kind of nice, uplifting, future bass. I thought I want it to be darker. So I literally just pitched it down. I don't know if it's just psychological to me, but I felt like it sounded darker by pitching it down. So from that, I made the string melody. It's coming in now. So that.
And what did you use for those strings? What plugin are you using underneath that?
So this is Logic strings. I use a lot of Logic stock plugins, not because, just because it's so quick. I do want the Contact stuff. I've just not got around to get into it, but I've got used to Logic stuff. It's pretty good. I'm sure there's better stuff in Contact, but so yeah, this is Logic strings. So I've got it set split into a bunch of different strings on different tracks and kind of pan them around and stuff. Originally, it was just one string sound for the entire section, but as I was coming close to finishing, it's kind of bugging me that it sounded a little fake. So I separated it out to all these different instruments.
Gotcha. And was there any is there a reason why you panned them that way? Like, what was your thought behind? Because I see, like, in violin 2, for example, you have it panned almost halfway to the left, and then the violin 1 is like a quarter to the left. Like, what's your thought process behind the way that you pan things there?
Yeah, I didn't want it too wide. So the idea was I just kind of visualized a bunch of dudes standing there with string instruments, and I thought, so 2 violin guys are going to stand next to each other, and then the cello guy is going to be on this side, and then another cello guy a bit further. And just kind of, that's how I thought of it.
It's cool. Kind of spread them naturally in the stereo field, right?
Yeah, and then there's a viola like pretty much in the middle at the end. Yeah.
Cool. What's that viola doing? Is it just like a held note?
Yeah, it's like just a sustained melody at the end. It's not that loud really, but yeah.
Cool. All right. I love those strings, and the way that they come in too, it makes it immediately feel organic as well. So I that's what kind of caught my ear right away when listening to the track for the first time myself. The vocal, what kind of stuff did you do to the vocal? Did you do anything to the vocal, or did you just toss it in dry?
Yeah, I did. It was already processed, I think, and I think there's some harmonies kind of baked into it, one file. But I put it in Melodyne. I used Melodyne to pitch it down. It just sounded better to pitch down in Melodyne.
Gotcha.
And so I'll go through the plugins. All right, so this is a Slate Digital compressor, which I don't think is actually compressing that much. it's just the sound. This particular compressor adds like some air to the vocal or anything to put it on, like really cool. Not really distortion, just warmth, I suppose you could call it. And then I have like a compressor doing the actual compression, which is press work, which I really like. Quite a big, like universal compressor.
Gotcha.
Logic's Chroma Verb. It's good reverb. I know everyone uses Valhalla, but I've just not got around to getting that yet. And then I think these are just sidechain compressors. One's probably for the kick, and one's probably for the snare. No, the other kick, yeah. It's like kind of rooted to the drum loop, but low pass.
Gotcha. So there's two early compressors in that vocal chain. What was the thought between putting both of them on? Are they kind of like splitting the work up, or did they both add a certain color that you were looking for, or was it just sort of trial and error that you threw them on there? Like why did you put them in that order? And why, maybe you could explain like why you have a compressor and EQ and then another compressor and stuff.
Yeah. So the first one, yeah, that's not actually compressing. It's just the vibe of the compressor, or the warmth, or I forget the word, the color, I suppose. It adds, this particular compressor adds this really nice color. So I just put that on as that. Sometimes I use it to compress a little, but the press work one, there's just a specific, this vintage Vox compression. You've got to dial it back a bit. I think it's a bit too hard, but so yeah, that's why there's two compressors. There's the EQ in the middle is not really doing anything. There's just a little boost on the high end, because I think the lows were already cut out, so I didn't do that.
Cool.
Yep.
Is it possible to play the vocal like an A-B, like once without all that processing and once with the processing, or is it too complicated to unfreeze that?
No, yeah, I can do that. Do you want me to talk about like the delays and stuff now, or before I do that?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah, okay, so something I do with the vocals is a sidechain reverb, like a really huge one. It kind of pops through the spaces, but I'll see if I can play it for you.
I don't do this often, you caught me off guard.
It's not so hard, is it?
I kind of hear like in the space between where she's not singing and the next part where she is singing, you have like reverb kind of side chaining, pulsing, keeping that movement and that color along in those empty parts. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've done the same with the delay, and there's like a long kind of tail upwards with the sidechain compressor, so it kind of comes in slow and sucks into the next section.
Okay.
And there's also an LFO tool, so it's also rhythmic to like a quarter note. You see what I mean?
I don't do this often, you caught me off guard.
So I do that quite a lot on the vocal. I quite like it.
And I noticed you didn't put it all the way down to the zero, to the floor on that LFO. Is that to kind of maintain a little bit more body when it was pumping, or what was like, why'd you do that?
Yeah, I think because some of it is still, it's not fully sidechain, so some of it still does come through while the vocal is actually playing. You see what I mean? It's not only in the gaps.
Cool, man. So yeah, maybe is it possible to play a local vocal without all the processing, just to see what you were given initially and like what you turned it into?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I think I already printed Melodyne onto it, so you won't hear the original pitch.
Okay.
Maybe not.
I don't do this often, you caught me off guard. All of my friends said you moved out west. You tell me stories underneath sunsets.
Cool. Alright, so that's dry.
I don't do this often, you caught me off guard. All of my friends said you moved out west. You tell me stories underneath sunsets. Could it be more?
Yeah, it sounds great. It's like way more airy and warm with all the processing you added to it. So you can definitely hear the difference.
Sweet. Yeah, I didn't do like a lot of processing really, but yeah, that compressor does quite a lot, actually.
Nice. Cool. Maybe we can jump into something in the dropper, maybe like a build up. What do you want to talk about next? Anything that tickles your fancy?
Something. So the string section, I actually back that up with a synth, like just another Logic. It's called Retro Synth.
Okay.
I'll just play that for you. Yeah, so that just underpins because it sounded a little thin without that. So,
and it makes it sound more like electronic and full too. Like if you just,
yeah,
it might sound a little too organic or whatever, or maybe not. But that's a good layer in my opinion. I think you did a great job with that.
Yeah, cheers. And then further on, the filter opens up as it goes along in the build up.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did you sort of build up to the drop? Because it's like you had this like kind of like a dubstepy drum beat in the beginning, if I remember correctly, and then you kind of drop it off. So what kind of effects are you using? What samples did you draw on there, or are those MIDI triggering synths?
Okay, yeah. So that's probably this. It's just a loop, just like a track loop from. It was from Cymatics. Yeah, it was Cymatics. So this. Probably that you mean.
Nice.
Yeah, that's just a straight drum loop. Like, so what I usually do, I have like placeholders, and sometimes I replace them and sometimes I don't. Like, I'll just drop a drum loop in and think I'll replace it later, and then you kind of forget that it's a loop, and when you come back to listen again, it doesn't really matter. You don't feel like you have to replace it. That's something I do.
That's something that's come up a few times on the show. It's like, there's always the people who are against dropping in loops and using them like that. And I hear that, but at the same time, it's like, if it sounds good and you can fit it in nicely, it's if you're making a good track out of a loop or whatever you're dragging in, why wouldn't you use it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I'd start doing things like that, I wouldn't have made the deadline for the competition. So, you should do that anyway. You should try and do things quickly, really, to move on. But it's not hard to make a drum loop like that, really, is it? So
yeah,
it would have just been the same thing.
But then you got to find the sounds and do all this stuff, and it's like a lot of work that's not flowing towards the end result of the song, right? Unless you have all that stuff set up, it's not quick. And I think a remix contest is a great way to test your speed and like really put yourself under pressure and see what you have to cut out if you want to finish a song, right? So in this case, you drag some drum loops on and it's like, it's filling out nicely. Why wouldn't you use it? So I think it's great, man.
Yeah, and it's not even like a major part of the project. It's just like it's intentionally kind of subdued, and it's just in the intro, really. So it wasn't supposed to be a big thing in the track. So I didn't care that much.
There you go. Cool, man. So then we had that, and then it kind of like drops off into what I'd call like a build-up type of section, right? And you got like, I see breakdown war horn. And
yeah, this is one of my favorite parts. These are just. So I did do some tricky stuff with it. It's a Kashmir sample. Yeah, so the reason some of it is in MIDI is because so I could do the pitch bend. Can you see? I've just used the portamento to get the pitch to go up. It's a weird way to do it, I suppose, but as long as you find a way to do something,
it works, right?
It works, yeah. But the original sample, so you'll hear it like kind of loops. It's because it dips, which sounded cool, but I do use it later on in the song. But at this point, it sounded weird that the pitch goes downward at the beginning, and it just didn't sound right here. So I kind of looped it so it didn't have the part that dips downwards.
And for those of listeners who are in Logic and aren't aware of how to do that sort of portamento glide like you just described, like what, real quickly, could you just kind of gloss over what you did to get that gliding up effect for those two notes?
All right, so I drop the sample in here, put it to the right key, And then this glide thing, I've set it to maximum.
Gotcha. So
See where it says glide, and then you set it to legato here. Then on the actual MIDI, you know, the keyboard thing here, I've just pitched it up to 1 octave above, and I'll play it for you. Yeah.
Thanks for that, man. That's
Yep.
some people who, because I know I've been asked before, how do you pitch stuff up in Logic? I'm like, I have no fucking idea.
So there is actually a plugin in Logic. It's kind of hidden that kind of does the same thing. If you automate it, you go to Audio Units, Apple, and then AU Pitch, it's called. Sorry, I lost it there. And you can just automate this pitch knob. And it has a kind of a bad quality sound, but I actually use it sometimes because it just sounds cool in a bad quality kind of way.
I mean, sometimes you can swing that bad quality, throw some processing on top of it, and have your own colored sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Great tip. So that's an interesting little build assortment of sounds there. That's really cool. So maybe it's time we dive into that drop, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's start with the bass leads. Like, what are you using to get that, like, that crunchy rhythm type sound? Like, what are you doing? It looks like you got some audio in there. Maybe you can dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, so this is the rhythm drop. So I'll just play it real quick. All right, so that is literally just one tiny sample doubled up. So one of them, I'll find the original sample so it makes sense. Yeah, so when I was doing the drop, I had no idea what I was going to do. It wasn't even supposed to be a rhythm track. It was going to be, I suppose, like a darker future bass was the idea. Mm-hmm. But I thought, I just want to try like maybe one little bass noise in the drop. And I listened to some of these company ones. Let me find it. Mid layers. This was it. Which didn't sound like much on its own. I thought I'll drop it in, and then I just messed around with the pitch and came up with the lower one. I think I just straight pitched it down and stretched it out. And then I added the top layer and pitched it up. So together. Yeah, and that's it.
It's genius, man. It's crazy because, like, I feel like a lot of people are really hesitant to drag samples in and mess with them as their drop, but it can really be that simple, and you just get this crazy, full, thick drop synth.
Yeah.
One little loop. So good for you.
That's it. Like I've seen Gamma, like he does that. I listen to his music. I'm like wondering what crazy synth he uses. And sometimes his drops, like the synth, is like just a little vocal sample that he messes around with and makes a huge like lead synth out of it. I think that's how I started, just messing around with audio samples. That's why I don't use synths that much. I do use them, but not that much.
So in Logic, as a complete Logic noob myself, like how do you manipulate audio that way? Like stretch it and expand and pitch and stuff. Like what are you using to do that?
So it's similar to Ableton, how you have these algorithms. I don't know if that's what you call them, but different ways to stretch. Like polyphonic is probably the best quality one. And then another good one is speed, so do you know you just pitch something down and it would make the sample longer because it's just pitched it down that way. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So that's kind of one way to do it. But this time I just used the polyphonic because it sounded good texture-wise. And you can use like slicers, which would keep the same length, but of the actual individual notes, if you know what I mean, and put kind of gaps in between. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Nothing fancy.
Gotcha. And like, how do you actually expand it and squeeze it? Is it just a tool?
Yeah, you just drag it like that. That's it.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's pretty good. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, do you know, I almost actually switched to Ableton because they didn't have this a few years ago at all. The time stretching thing. So that's what I nearly went to Ableton, but then it came out, and then I just stuck with it.
I mean, if you got things going in Logic, you understand the workflow. It's like it's hard to drop all of that and then go over to the new thing that you have no clue how to use. But
yeah, exactly. Like I've got Bitwig, but yeah, I used a bit and it's cool, but it's just more comfortable to go back to Logic. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. So, but going back to the drop real quick. So you have those two like layers there, right? So what else is going on? Is it just that and drums, or is there other stuff too?
No, there's a few. So obviously the stab in the beginning, I'll play that. That initial stab, that's like a bunch of layers. So this is another company sample from the same folder. Yeah, like not much of anything, but it works with everything else. A war horn, I think it's a different one to the one I used in the build-up. Another this is Cashmere. And that's just kind of some manual side chaining that I did, just because I just find it quicker sometimes to do it like that. Do you know, just with a fade? I think Ableton has the same thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice to dial it in exactly where you want it to.
Yeah, yeah. White noise just to fill out the top. Synth, a bit of pitch wobble. I think that is. Oh, that's another Logic synth. Yeah, just a basic Logic synth. Sub. Saw synth. That's Alchemy, another Logic synth. Choir.
So you got quite a few layers.
Yeah, I'm still going. The strings, but with like the wobble. I forget what you call that. Tremolo or something.
Vibrato or something, right?
Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. So
that's
how
that.
do you go about mixing all that together? Like, are you thinking about like where they fit in the stereo image? Like, are you EQing things to give them their own space? Like, what kind of stuff are you doing when you have that many layers stacked on top of each other to avoid your drop just sounding too smashed at the beginning?
I don't think I've mixed them together. I haven't mixed them together, to be honest. I felt like it just sounded. I think it sounded good the way it was.
Okay.
Because the strings, that's still from the whole string section. It's not like a new string instrument. So that was already kind of mixed. But it all fades inwards, so it's not too smashed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so the sounds that you picked are playing nice with each other.
Yeah.
I think that could speak to great sample selection and sound selection, right? Because I think a lot of times people try to force sounds together. So it sounds like you picked a selection of sounds that play nice with each other without much work, which is really not only faster, but like it sounds really good too.
Yeah.
Cool, man. And then
I just want to play that as well on the second drop because it's not much different. It's just extended, if anyone was wondering.
Sure.
For the taking.
It's the same thing, literally just dragged out longer. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I guess the last thing we could touch on with your drop is the drums. So what do you got going there? Is that a loop as well, or is that something that you drew in?
Hopefully not. Yeah, these are individual. It's pretty basic. There is a loop in there, just like a top loop, but so that's just the kick, clap. I'm pretty sure these are all cymatics, and then the drum loop is just like a high pass. Yeah, so there's a little snare there, but you don't really hear it, and then a shaker, probably a Cashmere shaker.
Cool.
And then just one compressor on the bus, which is a Logic compressor with some soft clip on it.
Interesting. So you have all those drums sort of untouched by processing, and then you have one compressor on the bus. Is that all you're doing to the drums?
No, there is some processing. So on the kick, I've got the T-Rax classic clipper, and so this is the Neutron transient shaper. and it's a multi-band transient shaper, which is good because if you like pushing the lows of a kick, it can just distort it quite easily. So if you just push from like 100, it gives you like, you know, the punch of the kick rather than trying to push the bass transient up.
Gotcha. So you're basically using that as like a multi-band transient shaper under.
Yeah. And then the clap, that's just got Logic. I use this on a lot of things. It's super basic overdrive Logic. That's on the clap. The drums, that's the drum loop. Yeah, just an EQ. I think I did that just to pop the snare out a little, that little bump there. And then the shaker, nothing on the shaker. Yeah.
And I noticed when I was listening back, and I don't know if this was intentional, but when the claps hit in the drop, you have like the reverb kind of washing to the left side. And yeah, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it creates some really cool like stereo feel in your drums and in the drop that way. So I don't know if that was intentional. I just wanted to.
I think it must be on the sample because I don't have any reverbs on the drums at all or anything like that. Yeah, it must be the sample, that.
Yeah, I think you can kind of see in that waveform, so it must be, huh?
Yeah. Oh, it could be the drum loop as well playing a part. That's kind of got reverb already on it. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds great, man. I think you did a great job on those drums, and
thank you.
And I think this whole sort of breakdown of the drop is a testament to simplicity being better, right? Like you do have a lot of times, but I think the overarching general gist of like the writing portion of your drop, you did with like one sample in a creative way, and then a fairly simple drum loop, and just layered correctly, and you know, with a little bit of spice here and there. But like that's not that complicated, and it sounds great. So.
Yeah, it's partly because of the deadline, which I think is a good thing to have a deadline. Like I'm trying to figure out how to give myself deadlines for my own music, but I know that nothing's going to happen if I don't meet my own deadline. That's the issue.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh. So in the drop, there are other things in the drop, like in between the rhythm bits, like the solid, stuff like that, and there's horns and popping in and out. Yeah.
Maybe just give it a quick run through real quick, the whole drop, just now that we've seen all the elements, so we could all kind of listen a little bit more closely, I guess.
Oh yeah, this is something I've started to do. By the way, do you know when there's a tail, does it cut out my audio as well?
Not on mine, so I think you're good.
Okay. So let me find this sound because I quite like it. Is it this? Yeah, so it's just a reverse horn.
Okay.
Nothing crazy, but I just like that sound. I use it in my last song as well. Yeah. It sounds like a bass hit, but it's just a horn sample. Yeah.
In Logic, how do you reverse audio for the noobs?
Oh, okay. So you click on the region, and then you go to the file, functions, and then reverse. But I think it is destructive, so I'd be careful. You might need to duplicate it. I can't be certain, but
and
you know.
Those who don't know what destructive means, meaning once you click reverse, it changes that sample in your project. So you'd have to re-import the original sample again if you want the original version.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but just in case, like, you know, just check that.
Cool. All right, man. Well, to wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to dive in with this project that we didn't cover yet that do you find interesting, or any quick little tips or tricks you want to share with the producers and I don't know, anything else you want to share about this project?
Yeah, so towards the end, I was like, the last drop, I was in a rush to get it done. I had like a couple of hours. And it came out pretty good. I thought this is going to sound like shit, but I have to do it. So I just did it super quick. So don't think that just because you're doing something quick, it's going to sound like shit, because you might think so in the moment, but when you come back to listen to it, you might think, actually sounds great. Like, so this break between the second drop and the last drop.
For a million days, in a million ways, still your heart and I so your heart and in a million.
Alright, yeah. So the only things I've got, it's kind of sparse, but I think it needed it at this point. Let me see what I've got. There's a harmony in there. Which I just kind of pitched around in Logic's on. Let me see. Yeah, Logic has its own kind of melodyne type thing. I don't know if Ableton has that, where you can pitch the notes around. It's not as good, but it's quick.
Yeah, Ableton has that, but like you said, sometimes Melodyne or other tools do it better.
Yeah, and this is from Arcade. I love this plugin. I don't know if you know about it. It's from Output.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I've started a lot of tracks just from this. It's like the best inspiration source. Like you just call this up and you'll hear like an amazing loop, and it's more creative than just finding a loop, because you can play different parts and stuff. So these just distant voices. It's brilliant. This. So what that is, we have different lines, like distant voices, and then there'll be like a drum line, but distant voices. This is. I just put that in the background. This was just totally random. I literally just drew in a few keys, and I knew it was in key, so I knew it'd work. I didn't give it much thought. I just did it, came back and I thought, yeah, that sounds sweet. So I left that.
So maybe real quick, could you go back into Arcade? I want to just highlight one thing for the listeners, because a lot of people sleep on this plugin, but if you just open it up real quickly and show where you can switch the key.
Yeah, so I think it should automatically route it to your project key. I'm not 100% sure, but in this top right corner, you can change it there.
Yeah, I just want people to see this, because I think a lot of people, I've had people ask me, where like, oh, I've tried Arcade, but it's not in tune or something's weird.
Oh, okay.
Every little like preset that you load from Arcade, it has its own tune, right? But you can come in here and you can select the tune of your track if it's not auto-selected, which in most cases, for me at least, it's not. So if you come in here, you find the key of your track, you select the key, the correct key in Arcade, and you start poking around, that's when the magic really starts to happen. And I'm sure that's how you came up with that like quick little atmospheric line you just showed right there, is because
yeah, it is.
Yeah, everything just starts to sound good with your project once you set the key right. So just wanted to highlight that real quick. Sorry to hijack. But,
no, yeah.
Cool, man. Well, as we wrap up, maybe we can give one, like, what's the one tip that you'd give to new producers open up their DAW for the first time? There's a lot of people in quarantine right now that are trying their hand at music production, or maybe before quarantine they just started, or however many years they've had experience. What tips do you have for people that just starting out to produce consistently and not give up? Like what kind of stuff do you have to say inspirationally to them? And maybe it's something that you learned from this track or otherwise, but anything you want to tell those people?
Well, this is new to me actually. Just do what you enjoy, the first thing. If you enjoy it, like, you're already winning. Don't worry about like being the next biggest DJ, because you don't even know if you'd enjoy that. Like, I know people, I've seen interviews with people and what have you, they like the times when they was grinding and trying to get there. So if you enjoy it, then you're already winning before you've, made it as a big famous DJ or whatever. And even the genre that you make, if you enjoy making other genres, then do it. Don't feel like you have to pin yourself down to dubstep if you like doing other stuff. And then I think it'll just come through in your brand when you're posting your music. So,
there it is.
I'm sure I've got more, but I can't think of off the top of my head. Like, I've been doing this for a long time, like I say, and if you've got a genuine passion, like, I'm going to do this until I'm an old man, for sure. Like, whether it's, if I'm too old for EDM, I'll do, like, movie stuff or whatever.
Honestly, I feel like that's something that's also plagued my mind is the age thing. And I think it's all about what you enjoy listening to, what you enjoy creating. And if you enjoy creating this music when you're 60 years old, like, it shouldn't stop, you know? So I admire that. That's awesome, man. So before we sign off, anything else you want to share? What's coming up for Dante Rose this year? What do you got in the works?
So I haven't got many tracks out yet, but I've got a lot of good stuff in progress. So the way I make music, I bring up a bunch of tracks at the same time. That's what I'm doing right now. That stops you from getting bored of one particular track, you see. So I'm excited about like 10 tracks. So at some point they'll all be done. Like I've got a good one coming out soon, like a dubstep, maybe a melodic dubstep, I'm not sure yet, but with a vocal, kind of similar to this. So that's the next thing.
Dope, man. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. Really enjoyed breaking this track down with you. I hope you'll listen
me too.
This first taste of a track breakdown on my channel. So really appreciate you being the first to do it. Love this song again. And thanks again for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you.